recording, and to the exciting part. So we are recording, and I would like to introduce our presenter today. It is my pleasure to introduce Chef Paul Schron, who is the kitchen administrator of Spirit of the Children's Society. Paul is a Vancouver-born chef who has been working in the Whistler-Pemberton area for over 25 years. He's trained in Italian West Coast cuisine and has been getting in touch with his Métis roots for a couple of years now and instructing cooking in the Lower Mainland. And of course, working in the community kitchen for Spirit. So very, very great for us. We get to benefit from that. And now I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Paul. Just make sure you unmute. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thanks for having us again. I'm loving doing these Zooms. It's good to be back. It was great today and yesterday for a couple of pickups of So thanks to those people that are joining us and that they got meal packages this week. It was good to see some faces from last time and some new faces, and be able to sort of have a couple of seconds, couple of minutes to chat about what's happening tonight. And I think it's ironic that I picked maybe not ironic, but that we're making stew, and the weather outside is very stewy, very soupy. So I wanted to share a little bit about why I picked these recipes. The Three Sisters stew. It's a classic First Nation, but it's a historic First Nation dish, sort of made in the fall with the beans and the squash, and beans and squash and the corn. And again, kind of something stewy, kind of soupy for fall. And also, I had made fried bannock, I think, for another session, and I really wanted to make the baked bannock a little healthier and just a little different. And again, bringing some of that Indigenous heritage in here as well. So yeah, welcome to our kitchen here at Spirit of the Children. Thanks to Pauline. She's going to be my camera person today. And maybe give a little feedback when I ask questions. So I will try to go a little bit slower and discuss things thoroughly with you guys as we're going along, so as not to get sort of too far ahead of you guys. So also, I appreciate any feedback and questions if I am going a little bit too fast. So if you haven't already, hopefully you've got your sort of equipment close by, what you're going to need. And the first thing we're going to need is our oven preheated to 400 degrees or 380 degrees if you have like a convection oven, which we have here. So you can preheat that now. I thought we would get the bannock going first, and then once the bannock takes about 30 to 40 minutes. So once the bannock is in, then we would start our stew, and then halfway through the stew, we'll check our bannock, pull it out, drizzle a little more, just a little bit of a little butter on it. Hello, and then put it back in. Even switch it around a little bit in the oven. So, cool. So let's get started. We're gonna do our bannock first. Any questions off the bat? Anybody? Rebecca?
I don't see anything yet. You can go ahead and get started.
Okay, cool. Right on. And yeah, so maybe just a little bit higher up and a little bit more of an angle. And then so first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get a bowl with our dry ingredients. I got like the angle. So I've got 3 cups of all-purpose flour here, and then using magic baking powder here, which is a favorite of mine. So 1 tablespoon, and I'm gonna put that in there, and 1 tablespoon of sugar. And what else? Salt, half teaspoon of salt. So there's our dry goods. And then I'm just going to give that a little mix. Now, another thing I have for this, so I wanted to talk a little bit about recipes. So when I'm cooking a recipe, and this is a suggestion for yourselves. So I like to read through my recipe first. So this one talks about using butter, but you can use margarine. So it should be cool, cold or cool. It could be cut up in cubes, or just like I'm gonna scoop it in there. It also calls for the water to be room temperature, right? So once I kind of go through the recipe, I'll see if maybe something needs to be pre-cooked. Maybe something in the recipe needs to be like blanched or half cooked or roasted or soaked, right? So again, that's a really helpful thing when reading recipes, is read it all the way through first. You know, maybe something needs to be marinated for 24 hours and you're just ready to throw in the oven. You're like, oh, I need one more day. So that's just a helpful hint. Okay, so we got our dry goods there. And I'm gonna get this. So the baked bannock is very similar to the fried bannock, except for instead of frying in oil, we're basically taking our margarine and we're putting it into our flour mixture. Okay.
Jeez, running away from me.
So like I say, you could cut your margarine up in little squares and put it in the fridge. I just put mine right in my container here. And another thing we're going to need for this recipe is going to be, there's a couple ways you can do this, is you can either use a fork or a dough.
So they have to see your face?
What's that?
So they have to see your face?
Well, sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe try to keep it just.
Can we straighten out a little bit?
Okay.
There you go. Getting a little seasick.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
So yeah, we have our, so that's one way to do it. If you don't have that, you can come a little closer and go on an angle. So when I say an angle, I mean like that. Yeah. Just so they can see it, right?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Perfect. You bet.
You're welcome.
And then what we're trying to do here, whoever made tea biscuits, we're just trying to get the butter into little pebbles. How's everybody doing out there? So with the cooler butter, it just helps to sort of make those folds, those separations in the dough, and it helps to sort of elevate it. We get some more elevation in our bannock. You get those layers. Yeah, it doesn't do quite the same thing if your butter is yeah, like oil or like this. You want to overdo it, or you want to get it sort of mixed in there.
Paul, just so you know, you got some kiddos cooking along as well.
Really?
Yeah.
They're getting their mitts in there, are they? So again, you know, a fork works just as good. Like a fork works great. This fork is going to be helpful for after, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be poking some holes in the top of our bannock. Okay. So next thing we're going to do, how's everybody doing? Is everybody coming along?
Looks like everyone's fine. Feel free to type into the chat at any time, everyone, I mean.
So I'm going to make my little well, and then I'm going to pour my water in there. I'm going to do it slowly, and I'll wait for everybody. Basically, I'm going to blend that. You can use your hands. You can use a wooden spoon, whatever you like. Sometimes I'll start with a spoon, then I'll get my hands in there. Once it comes together, I only want to sort of get it into a ball of dough for about 20 seconds. I have seen some recipes where people go a bit longer and really knead it. What I find is if it's over mixed or over kneaded, it gets a little tough, right? Give it a little action here. Now, the reason why I have this container here is because I'm going to be kneading it in that container. I just didn't want to make a mess of the stove. And I could have used a stainless steel table behind this, but I thought I would keep it in this area. So give it a good mix. Give it a good mix.
So we have one question, Paul,
Oh,
and that is basically how long can Bannock be kept for?
Like after it's cooked, it
Yeah.
usually lasts maybe 2 days. It gets a little bit dried out.
Okay.
So, hey, one of the cool things about Bannock is once you have made it, it freezes well. So, I mean, after you make it or the next day when it's cooler, after it's cooled down, if you want to freeze it, it heats up like out of the freezer, it keeps really well. But usually it's nice to get fresh Bannock the same day, the next day. What do you think, Pauline? What's to do with Bannock?
I think that's about right.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna get my hands in there now. Oh, that's another thing I want to talk about. So I don't have a microwave in this kitchen, but I'm just gonna I have a little bit of butter and oil in there. I'm gonna put this in the oven. That's gonna be to sort of drizzle on top of my Bannock in the oven. So I'm just putting it in the oven to melt it. So you can put it on your stove and melt it or your microwave, whatever kind of mix. That's kind of what I want to do in here, but I'll do that right now. So I'm gonna give this a little knead. I'm feeling a little needy. There we go. Now you can use a rolling pin and roll it out a little thinner if you want. I quite like to get it into sort of like a log or in one piece, so it's coming together. And then I have a grease pan, and I've just dusted it with. Sorry, keep it square, right?
Square.
Why I'm angling like that. So I'm going to go with that. That's going to be my bed. Now, you can make strips. You can make it in a rectangle. You could roll it a little thinner if you like. That's kind of what I'm going to go with. Now, what I was saying about the fork, I'm going to make some marks here because I'm going to drizzle my butter in the holes.
Oh, we've lost our view.
Oh no,
There you go.
sorry.
Thank you. That's okay.
I'm not very good at this.
You know what? The pandemic has made us all develop our virtual skills. Don't worry about it. I learned to film on a professional camera, which I never thought I would have to do.
Okay, so I'm going to drizzle a little bit of this on there. You could use I'm sort of doing it a bit of a chef way. I do have a pastry brush. I would almost call this lazy, but this is what I would normally do if nobody was watching. I'm doing it anyways. So I've sort of got enough. I use half butter, half oil. But you can use all margarine or all butter if you like. So I've just got that to that point, and then this is going to go in the oven. I'll leave a little bit. I want to know how everybody's doing right now.
Enter in the comments. How are we doing, everyone?
How we doing? Your triceps are getting a good workout there, Paul.
Yeah,
We've got a thumbs up from Sue.
Okay.
I've got a direct good from Sandy. Got another great here.
I hear my sister's out in the crowd there.
I did see a Sharon join, so I do believe.
So at this point, so it's okay to leave it out for like a minute or two because it's still gonna rise a little bit, but then we want to get it in the oven. right? Okay, so I'm gonna put that in the oven. And I've got it set for, I think in your recipe calls for 400. So mine's not very big. I'm gonna set my timer for 20 minutes. I'm gonna set my timer for 12 minutes. And then I'm gonna take it out, flip it around, and add a little more butter on top. Okay? All right. Now I'm going to start warming up my pot. I don't want to go too fast. I have a tendency to go too fast. I apologize. So what you will need for the stew is a medium to large size pot. Yeah, the way we're doing it today is on the stove. This dish could be made in a Dutch oven or a slow cooker, but you would want to maybe start it out on the stove and then put it in the slow cooker to kind of finish. It'll speed it up a little bit, especially when you're utilizing meat. I'm gonna have a drink of water. $6:22. We're doing good for time? Okay, cool. Okay, so for this recipe, I'm gonna get all my liquids over here. I've got, the recipe calls for water or stock. I do have a chicken stock here. I have 4 cups. The recipe calls for 2 cups. I just have 4 cups in case, because sometimes depending on the vegetables in there, it need trying to straighten it up. You're going on me.
Oh, sorry.
So you're gonna want to just have a little extra liquid, right? Pork cut up. You can cut up your pork sort of in slices or little chunks. I've got mine in cubes. I'm using frozen corn, but there is some fresh corn out there. I pulled my frozen corn out so it can thaw out a little bit, so I'm not using something that's too frozen or too cold. And you might want to come a little closer, and I'm going to cut a couple of vegetables. So what I like to do is get my pan on. It's on like super low right now, but it's sort of heating up, right? Just getting things going.
So if you could stay as still as possible, Pauline, that will help. It's really hard. There we go. You got this. Biceps.
Yes, I know, right? So how's everybody doing out there? Now, I did ask some people today to maybe get their vegetables cut and get organized beforehand. I have some of my vegetables cut, but I just want to talk a little bit about cutting vegetables and even with an onion. So with the onion, you'll have part of the onion will be the core, which is on the bottom there. So how I like to cut an onion, how I've seen it, I've been taught, is I kind of put the core kind of away from me, and I will cut. First of all, I'll get my knuckles kind of coat the crab. And you know, when you're dealing with a stew or a soup, you can kind of get away sometimes with cutting things, you know, a little bit bigger, right? But anyways, there we've got some cubed onion. And then maybe I don't want that core in my, I think the last thing to cook. So there's my half my onion. I'm going to cut the other half. I mean, you can always just kind of cut it the old way of just cutting it all the way through. But the other way is a little interesting. It's called cross hatching. And this is a good hearty stew as well. So I'm going to crank my heat up a little bit and get it going here. Turn my fan on. It might make some noise. I have an oil blend here. I'm going to use a couple of tablespoons of oil. So I like to get my want to get my onion kind of going first to get the flavor started. Like I say, I've cut my pork quite small. I'm just gonna stay there.
That's
Chris got it.
Oh,
Now, you want to make this large?
yeah, sure. It'll be much easier, I think.
That didn't work. That's okay.
Okay.
We're good. Okay, so I got my heat crank, sort of medium high. Yeah, sure. Yeah, get a little bit higher up there. Check it out. Check it out. And again, whenever you're putting something in some hot oil, sort of face it away. So if there's any splashing, it's splashed on the wall or somewhere else.
I have a question for you, Paul. When did you first learn to cook this stew and the baked bannock?
So the stew I learned about 2 years ago. And basically working for Solo Nation. And one of my sous chefs, Melinda, who might watch this. Anyways, that was her idea. She's from out east, 5 Nations, and so she introduced me to this stew and the story. So I was going to tell you a little bit about the history of the stew. I just want to get this garlic in there, and then I want to get the pork in there. So I like to give my garlic a little smash.
On your face?
Hey, sure. So giving the garlic a little smash and a little pet. There we go. Okay, let's get it in there. I'm gonna give that a little mix. We have a little color. And then I'm gonna get our pork in there. Now, as soon as I'm adding the pork, although it's quite hot in there, it's gonna naturally cool down. I did take my pork out of the fridge about a half an hour ago. I don't want to burn this, but I do want to get a little bit of color. And then, so at this point, again, with soups or stews, it's really good to season as you go. Pepper tends to get stronger, and this is, I probably put a little too much pepper. I probably won't put any more pepper. Pepper gets a little stronger, so take a get the pepper. I forget about that sometimes.
Paul, you got a little quieter all of a sudden.
Oh, did I?
Yeah. Maybe Pauline's hand is on the speaker, or if you have a mic, maybe it's covered a little bit.
Oh, sorry. At this point, I'm going to add my vegetables. How's that? Is that okay?
I think you're okay. Yep.
Okay. Now I'm going to add my herbs. I'm adding a tablespoon of cumin, tablespoon of chili powder, and a tablespoon of oregano. I kind of want to get the oils out of the herbs, cook them a little bit, get some flavors out. I'm also trying to cook my pork like 70–80%. I want to get that going. So something about this stew. So with the corns, so according to the indigenous, the Iroquois legend, the corn, the beans, and the squash. They're three inseparable sisters, and they grow and thrive together. So that's kind of some of the history. You can read all about it. There's tons of history around this. I'm gonna get I put some jalapeno in your dishes. What you'll notice with the jalapeno, so the hot part of the jalapeno is basically the seeds. So you might want to cut those out there. And I am only going to use, I don't even know if I'm going to use a half a jalapeno. I'll probably use a quarter jalapeno. But I think that'll be hot enough. But it really adds some good flavor to this stew. I'm going to cut it quite small. And it really does add a nice flavor to this. So I think I'll explain it in a little bit once I have everything in the pot. But I have a little story. I read a little story about it. Okay, I think we're at the point. We added garlic jalapeno. We added our herbs. We're going to cook it for another 2 minutes, and we're going to add our tomatoes. So this is a medium-sized can of tomatoes. Size, about 28-ounce cup tomatoes. Now what we're looking to do here is we want to bring everything to a boil, and then we can add the rest. So this is meant to be a pretty forgiving and easy stew. So again, I have 4 cups. I'm just going to put 2 in there for now. Beans in there, 2 cups of beans, green beans. Now this is a great one for, say it's the winter time, you got frozen beans, or you have canned black beans or kidney beans. You got frozen corn, you got some vegetables in your fridge. This is a great one for, utilizing what you have. My timer's going off. Utilizing what you have in I don't know about you guys, but my timer's going off. So I'm going to check my Bannock. Oh, here. Hello.
Oh my
Nice.
God.
So I'm going to switch it around. That's when I'm going to put it back in the oven. Loving it. I'm loving it. Oh, Mr. Bannock. Hey, is that looking good, Rebecca, or what?
Anything with butter on it, I'm happy about.
Nice. Okay, so we're back. Again, I wanted to talk to you about cutting. So the carrots I had already sort of. I really like to use. I gave them a good wash. I really like to use things with the peel still on. A lot of the nutrients are right underneath the peel. So when you peel a potato or a carrot, you're getting rid of a lot of the really good nutrients. So what we're looking at doing is, again, we got our knuckles, we got our crab, nice balance. And it really depends on how big you want to cut or carrots. Maybe you don't have any carrots and you got turnips or yams. So 2 cups of carrots, 2 cups of green beans. Okay, where are we at here? Oh yeah, we need our potatoes. So potatoes I cut a little bit earlier. I washed them. I kept the seed, the peel on. I'm just going to put those in there too. And again, I'm going to add my corn in a little bit. I just want to give it a good boil and get things kind of started. I don't have it in the recipe, but a lot of people maybe don't have bay leaf at home. Bay leaf is really good in this dish. So you can put bay leaf in there if you have one handy. So with this dish, so the corn, beans, and the squash, they complement each other nutritionally. The corn provides carbohydrates. The dried beans are rich in protein, and they balance the lack of amino acids that are found in the corn. Finally, the squash yields both vitamins from the fruit and also healthful and delicious oil from the seeds, right? You get your pumpkin seed, your squash seed oil. So with growing these three together, the three sisters, so the corn provides, so we did this, I think it's about 3 years ago now. We did this with our class, with the Stolo Nation, with our Indigenous cooking class. We had a garden plot that one of the farmers in Chilliwack allowed us to utilize. And so we did this. So the corn provides a natural pole for the bean vines, okay, to climb. And then the beans, they fix nitrogen on their roots, improving the overall fertility of the plot, providing the nitrogen for the following year's corn. So the next year it's going to be nitrogen-rich soil. The bean vines, they stabilize the corn plants. The shallow-rooted squash vines, they become a living mulch. The shading weeds, they keep the soil moist so that all the moisture doesn't just evaporate. So keeps the soil extremely moist. The spiny, I love this. The spiny squash plants, they help discourage predators from the corn and the beans. So yeah, it's pretty. Again, if you Google it, there's some pretty good stories around this dish. And again, a basic dish, but at the harvest time when it gets into September, it's a great one. I just realized I didn't put my timer on for my other 12 minutes. About 10 minutes. Okay, so I think we have everything in there. We got our salt, we got our pepper, potato, carrot, green beans, corn, water, squash, cumin, coriander, chili powder, oregano, jalapeno, garlic, point, onion. We have everything in there. So at this point, you're not too worried about it, but as you kind of get going, you can decide, do I want this to be more of a stew? Do I want this to be more of a soup, right? So you could add a little bit more of liquid, and then with flavoring. So we're using oregano, we're using chili powder, we're using cumin. I really enjoy cumin. It's used in a lot of different ethnic cooking. Used in South Asian cooking, used in Mexican cooking. I really like cumin because it has kind of an earthy flavor. With chili powder, same thing. Chili powder kind of goes with a lot of items. There is oregano already in chili powder, so oregano is another nice one. But this can be seasoned kind of your own special way. You could use thyme, you could use rosemary. This dish could add a little dash of vinegar in there, which is nice sometimes. A little apple cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar. When flavoring and when you're seasoning this after, depending on the tomatoes you put in there, depending on the corn, a little bit of sugar is a nice touch in here too, to take away the acidity of the tomatoes. Yeah, and again, I've chosen pork for this one, but I've also done this with ground beef, with ground bison. And again, this is a great vegetarian dish, right? Just cooking as is. So it usually takes about Once it's boiling, another 20 minutes. Again, I like to give it that 20 minutes because we put pork in there. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit because it's boiling pretty good. How are we doing out there? Any questions? How's everybody doing?
We do have one question,
right.
and I believe this is from Linda Maeve. It says, just wondering why some people call Bannock fried bread. Isn't it the same thing?
Pauline, can you answer this one?
Usually the I don't know. I think it's almost the same, but only thing one is baked and one is fried, right?
So
I don't know. How
I
to
see.
explain the
I see some people make. So I think of fry bread as being a little bit thinner.
Right.
Like, so I've seen people make bannock and kind of either roll it out or make it almost like pizza and fry it. And then
Yes.
I think of that as being more fry bread, like the bigger pieces. And then then when I think of fried bannock or bannock, I think of like the sort of bear claw, like the big chunks. It's a little bit healthier to pan fry your bannock, so with just a little bit of oil. Some folks will deep fry their bannock, which that's the bigger chunks. So it really depends. But yeah, that's a good question. I think it really depends on the area that folks have grown up with tradition.
Okay, there are a couple more questions that just came in.
Okay.
So if you wanted or needed to make it gluten-free, can you just substitute for gluten-free flour? If so, do you have any suggestions?
You can. I have made a gluten-free bannock. It's not quite as good, but it does work. It's just not quite the same. You can, and also in the stores, you can buy like a gluten-free flour. A lot of times now, some of those flour mixes are getting better. In the past, maybe 10 years ago, I remember buying a gluten-free flour mix, and it really wasn't very good. Like, they didn't have very good, high-quality flours in there. Yes, it was gluten-free, but like I know pastry chefs that make their own gluten-free flours. Say like a corn flour with a quinoa flour. So it's just some higher quality items to make their gluten-free flour. So yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Okay. And then the next question, thank you for that. Someone missed what you said about the variations. Can this be made vegetarian? And if so, will it be lacking in flavor if it's vegetarian?
It could be, but again, making this at harvest time and like with a really good squash, and these beans that we got this week are beautiful green beans. So, maybe you have to add a little more salt and pepper or some extra herbs. And that's why I think I talk about the, a little dash of apple cider vinegar, a little bit of balsamic vinegar, or a little bit of sugar. So those things kind of help. So yeah, it could, add a little bit extra garlic or some fresh herbs in there. So yeah, it could be lacking a little bit, but yeah, it depends on what your palate is like.
Right. Okay. That's all the questions we have so far.
Okay.
So we have.
How's everybody doing out there?
Yeah, is anyone cooking along that can give us an update? I see someone's nibbling on something there.
Well, the bannock's looking pretty good.
Someone just asked if these veggies were from Irving House. No, not this time. They were in the last time when we did From Garden to Table. We've got one update. It's going great. Smells amazing. My son cannot wait.
Aw.
Yeah.
Hey, another thing with this baked bannock, if you want to sort of make it more of a dessert bannock or a sweet bannock. So this bannock, you could put actually some blueberries in there, right? You could put some chocolate chips in if you want, right? Okay? Or raisins or currants, right? Or cranberries, right? So that's the other kind of cool thing. If you put it just near the end, just when you're finishing eating it, you put those items in there. Also cheese. Cheese would go great, and if you like jalapenos, somebody today was talking about Their uncle made a jalapeno cheese bannock, big bannock. So they were just telling me that today. And so yeah, cheese adds a lot of flavor. And then when you bake the jalapeno, right, just a little bit of it, again, it gets rid of some of the heat when you roast the peppers and you bake them. So you don't get all the spiciness of the jalapeno, a little bit, but you get rid of some of it.
Nice. We got one more question here. Would you recommend green peas as a substitution for corn? Or is there something better?
Good question. Green peas are okay, and they're also a bit of a starch. There's a carbohydrate in peas. I like peas. I would put them near the very end if I was going to do peas. Also, you know what? If you didn't have the corn, if you didn't want to do the corn, you could just leave it right out. As a carbohydrate in this, because we're using potatoes, and also the squash is also got some carbohydrates in there. So you might lose some of the sweetness and the crunch from the corn, but you could add a little, like I say, a little bit of sugar to it.
Okay,
So, yeah.
thank you.
The corn also looks nice.
Can we see what your stew's looking like?
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yarm. I like sounding like a pirate. Oh, the bannock is looking so beautiful. I kind of want to give it one more minute. What is it? Yeah.
So maybe we can go back to the question I asked you before. When did you personally make this stew and the baked bannock for the first time?
Yeah.
You remember?
So the baked bannock, I can't remember the first time. Might have been like close to 10 years ago. And I don't think it went that well. It went okay. But I think I needed it too long because that's the recipe that I read. But again, as I've come along now, yeah, I bang it off, and so I have made it a couple times, and everybody here loves my baked bannock. So even
Who taught you?
The stew, yeah, like I say, I think it was about 3 years ago, and it was in Chilliwack, Stolen Nation, and
Nice.
I have made it 2 or 3 times a year. So I've probably made it about 8 or 10 times the last 3 years. But again, I like interchanging. Again, it's kind of a basic stew, but you could utilize what you kind of have around. And I love the story behind it.
Are you usually cooking for your family or people who are coming to the community kitchen?
I love cooking for my family, and I like cooking for my neighbors. It's fun because I have a couple of neighbors that are vegetarian. So I think they're quite surprised the kind of food that I can make them. And at first they didn't know I was a chef, so I made them ratatouille. I made them what's it called? Antipasto. And and I've made them maybe not this stew, but I made a veggie stew for them that they really enjoy. I like to freeze things. Definitely COVID times. I'm starting to eat everything out of my freezer now. And I'm making myself eat everything. I'm thinking this is done. It's gonna need to rest a little bit. And then I'm worried I'm gonna rest on this, burn myself, but I'll leave it right there. That's it. Another secret to keep this moist, I think there's enough butter on there, but if you want to, now if you wanted to brush a little bit of oil on there too, it'll keep it like a loaf of bread or buns when they come out of the oven. Brush a little bit of oil on them, they'll keep a little bit more moist, not dry out. So yeah.
There's one question here. For the veggie version of this stew, should we add more water?
If you put extra veggies, that you might need to. But you know what? What happens when you cook veggies? water comes out of the veggies. So it really depends on how watery you want your stew. It really depends.
Thank you. So no right or wrong answer, it sounds like.
No. And the more you cook your stew, the more it's going to get a little thicker. Like you're gonna extract some of the carbohydrates again from the potatoes, from the beans, from the corn, and that's going to disperse into your stew. So it's going to naturally get a little bit thicker. And with these items, you know, a lot of times you're making this for, say, tonight. You're making this for a dinner or an event. These dishes really do taste better the next day. Right, so like this, you know, we're gonna eat a little bit tonight, probably, but heat it up tomorrow. Like so much of the flavor. I have friends that have a restaurant up in Whistler, and they serve mostly soups. And basically, yeah, they never serve a soup the same day they make it. So they have a. I can't remember, it's been a while since I've heard it, but yeah, it's like soup of the day, but it's really like soup of yesterday. But yeah, a couple of European chefs, and that's the way they do it. And they really believe, yeah, everything kind of goes back into the vegetables and the items in the soup, and it's got way more flavor the next day.
That's so true. Actually, my Nona, who is obviously Italian because she's a Nona, she taught me the same thing with soups and also pasta sauces. If you aren't going to can them, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, we've got a question here. Should I be simmering the stew with the lid on or off?
Off is good because you're not trying to steam it, and also it'll pose a bit of a problem. You could have your kind of cover kind of half on there, but yeah, it's okay to let the steam kind of get away.
Okay, thank you.
I'm excited to taste this.
It smells good.
I wiped my mouth without washing my hands after the jalapeno, so my top lip is a little spicy.
Don't rub your eyes.
High five, Pauline.
No.
And again, like you could use a chicken stock for this. You could use a beef stock for the pork, right? You could use a veggie stock. So I didn't talk a little bit about. So what's really handy if nobody's doing this, and if you want to try this, is with vegetables, with mirepoix vegetables like onions, carrots, and celery, with bits of garlic, with parsley ends. If you take those every time you're cooking, if you take a couple of those ends and you have a container in your freezer, an ice cream container in the freezer, and you put that handful in the ice cream, and then maybe like after a month, you like realize, hey, I've got like 3 liters of veggie scraps, right? And you bring them out and you bring them to a boil with a bay leaf, with some pepper, with some thyme, a little bit of pepper, but you can actually make your own vegetable broth, right? With those scraps that would normally have gone into the garbage or in the compost, right? And then maybe you have a chicken bone in your fridge, or when you have a ham going, you have a ham bone in the freezer. You throw that in there, and now you've got a ham stock. So, but yeah, I find that helpful.
You've got a comment here. The Bannock is really good. This is from Anna. Much better than the stuff we made in elementary school in the late 80s. I don't. Awesome. That's over my head. Was that a thing?
That's great. Yeah. I remember doing. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we did it, but I remember the elementary schools making Bannock. Yeah.
Oh wow.
High schools making Bannock. Yeah. I think my kid made Bannock. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's good.
Says before going to Fort Langley, they would do that.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I grew up in Richmond. I remember going to Fort Langley when we were young. Want to back up a little bit with a spoon? I kind of want to taste it. I want to taste this. I've got it simmering now.
Yeah, we've got another comment here. I definitely made Bannock in elementary school in the 80s. And Lena says, that's a great tip. The bannock was delicious. We did ours in advance. So it made for perfect mid-cooking snacking.
Lena, good meeting you today, Lena. The pork is very tender. It's a little bit spicy. Okay, I'm gonna turn the oven off. Timer off. And I'm gonna turn that off. Okay, let's cut our bannock. I don't really want to cut it right in the middle. Yeah. You know what I really need? Sorry, I need to back up a second. Gotta have a serrated knife for this.
Oh, Susan said she also started earlier and both the bannock and stew are delicious. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, that worked out good. You can see some of the separations where the steam happens from the margarine. Steam. Nice. Right on. Cool. All right. More questions?
Okay,
Right
does
on.
anyone have questions? We can also, feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions now that we've sort of reached the end here, or
How's my sister doing? Did you cook?
let's see here. I won't unmute her.
Okay.
I'll leave it voluntary.
Okay.
Oh, I wasn't sure how to unmute myself, but no, I didn't cook along.
What?
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you came though.
Yes, thank you.
Aw.
Right on. You've eaten some of my food, eh, Paige?
Oh, I love your food. But I also love the story about the growing of the beans and the corn and the squash. That was so neat.
Yeah. No, I also like when I heard that a couple years ago from Melinda, I was blown away. Right. Again, you can look it up, and it's a couple pages in Wikipedia. Check it out. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Neat.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We have one more story here from Sue. Yes, one more Bannock story. In high school in the 80s on a survival camping trip, wrapped around a stick over the fire, and it was the most delicious meal I ever had, she says.
Right on.
Cool.
And I've even seen, you ever put like chocolate, you put chocolate and stuff in there in the hole? You ever done that, Pauline? No. But yeah, you can do, yeah, I've seen like guides and scouts will do it over the fire. Yeah.
Super yummy.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so are there any, we're at 7:02 here. So if
Okay.
there are any other questions, we'll just give the opportunity now. Give it a minute there. While we're waiting on that, I would just like to say thank you again to Chef Paul. You've been so great with this series, and thank you to Pauline. I'm sure that you've gotten a little bit more buff throughout this this filming session. I think for Christmas, I'll get Paul a tripod so we can save poor Pauline.
My arms are sore.
Triceps are just cut.
That's right. And thank you to everyone who cooked along and picked up the kits and who joined the program. It's been great. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Is there anything you'd like to say, Paul?
No, again, thank you, Rebecca, for this opportunity. And you've done a great job sort of helping out, emceeing and put these things together. And it's great to connect with you. And I love all the stuff that's going on with the Heritage Garden and Irving House and with the museum. And it's great to have you there taking care of things. And yeah, you got a great team there. I've met some of the people. So yeah, I wish you well on the other heritage projects. And and yeah, again, thanks for involving us. Spirit of the Children's done things for numerous years, right, with the museum. And,
Yeah.
I hope this is things to come, right?
Been almost a decade working together, and we continue to do more and more every year. And I think more and more with the city in general too, which is really nice to see. So yeah, we're
So
very
great.
privileged. Yeah.
It
We've got-
was great to meet people, like, again, like last time, and it's great to see the new people coming in and getting the packages. Again, learning more about Spirit of the Children and sharing about the museum, the heritage program, and just their experiences here in New Westminster. So I learned a little bit more about New Westminster today from some of the people who walked in. Hey, Gail. Yeah, I'm
of
talking
course.
shit.
I don't know if you can sort of sneak in a reverse your camera, but I would love for you, Paul, to see some of the faces looking back at
Oh,
you.
yeah. Oh,
Let's
yes.
see. There you go.
Aw. Hey, Lena.
Wave if you can.
That's Sue. I met Sue today.
Here, I'll stop the recording.